Have you ever wondered what secrets lie hidden in the folds of history? We often think of grand battles and royal decrees, but so much of our past was shaped in the shadows, by whispers and clandestine meetings. Tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of time, not with a textbook, but with a simple piece of clothing. A coat. But this is no ordinary coat. It's a vessel of secrets, a silent courier in a world of espionage and revolution. Imagine this. The late 18th century, a world teetering on the brink of change. Ideas of liberty and rebellion are spreading like wildfire, but speaking them aloud could cost you your life. In cities like Paris, London, or Philadelphia, dissent is brewing, not in public squares, but in hidden basements, away from the prying eyes of the authorities. Picture a cellar, damp and cold, the air thick with the smell of wet earth and melting wax. A handful of conspirators are gathered around a rough-hewn wooden table. Above them, the city sleeps, oblivious to the plot unfolding beneath its streets. Outside, a relentless rain beats against the cobblestones, muffling their hushed, urgent voices. Each drop of rain feels like a tick of a clock, counting down to a moment that will change everything. On the table, a map is spread out, its edges curled from use. It's marked with symbols and routes only they can understand. These aren't generals or kings. They are ordinary people merchants, printers, scholars bound by a shared belief in a different future. Their faces, illuminated by the flickering candlelight, are etched with a mixture of fear and determination. Every shadow that dances on the wall seems to hold a potential spy. Every creak of the floorboards from the tavern above sends a jolt of anxiety through the room. The tension is a physical presence, as tangible as the cold stone walls. They speak in clipped sentences, their eyes constantly darting towards the cellar door. They know that discovery means a swift and brutal end. The gallows, the prison, the firing squad, these are not abstract threats. They are the very real consequences of their bravery. Yet, they persist, because the message they carry is more important than their own lives. And this is where our story truly begins. With a letter, not a grand declaration, but a small, folded piece of paper. On it, written in a tight, hurried script, are names, locations, and instructions. This single piece of paper holds the key to a planned uprising, a network of sympathizers, a spark that could ignite a revolution. But how do you transport such a dangerous document? Any messenger could be stopped, searched, and tortured. The letter itself is a death warrant. The solution is ingenious. Born of desperation and cunning, it won't be carried in a saddlebag or a locked box, which would only attract suspicion. Instead, it will be hidden in plain sight, concealed within the very fabric of a traveler's coat. Let's watch closely now. In a corner of the room, away from the main group, a pair of hands works by the light of a single candle. These hands are not steady. They tremble, not from the cold, but from the immense pressure of the task. A needle and thread move with a practiced, yet nervous, rhythm. The coat, a heavy woolen greatcoat, lies across a lap. It's a common piece of clothing, something a traveler would wear to fend off the biting wind and rain. It's unremarkable, and that's precisely the point. The needle pierces the thick linen lining of the coat, near the hem. The stitches are small and neat, almost invisible against the dark fabric. The letter, folded into a tiny, tight square, is carefully slipped into a small opening cut into the lining. It's a delicate operation. A single misplaced stitch, a drop of wax from the candle, or a spot of blood from a pricked finger could betray the secret. The person sewing is focused, their world narrowed to this single, critical act. Their breath is held, their brow furrowed in concentration. Every stitch is a prayer, a hope that this message will reach its destination. They are not just sewing cloth, they are weaving the fate of their cause, stitching rebellion into the very seams of everyday life. This is the quiet, unsung heroism that history often overlooks. The shaky hands of a seamstress, a tailor, or a spouse, working in the dead of night, their heart pounding with every pass of the needle. Once the letter is secured, the final stitches are made. The thread is knotted and snipped. The seam is smoothed over, looking for all the world like it was never touched. The coat is now more than just a garment. It's a Trojan horse. It carries a secret that could topple an empire, hidden within its mundane threads. The coat is handed to the messenger, a man whose face is deliberately kept in shadow. He says nothing, his expression grim. He understands the weight of his mission. He will wear this coat through checkpoints and past patrols, his outward demeanor calm while his heart races. He will smile at soldiers, make small talk with innkeepers, and all the while, the secret will be there, a silent passenger against his skin. This method, hiding messages in clothing, was a staple of historical espionage. It was used by spies during the American Revolution, by members of the French resistance in World War II, and by countless others who fought for what they believed in. They used hollowed-out buttons, secret pockets, and coded embroidery. Every item of clothing was a potential dead drop, a way to move information invisibly. Think about the psychology of it, the constant, gnawing fear of discovery. The messenger on the road, feeling the slight bump of the letter against his leg with every step, a constant reminder of the danger. He can't afford a single moment of weakness. A nervous glance, a sweaty palm, anything could give him away. He's an actor on a stage, and his life depends on the performance. This small scene, a letter being sewn into a coat, is a microcosm of a larger struggle. It represents the lengths people will go to for freedom. It highlights the courage of the ordinary, the power of ingenuity, and the incredible risks taken by those whose names we will never know. Their stories aren't carved in stone monuments, but they are just as vital. They are woven into the fabric of history, sometimes literally. So, the next time you see a historical film or read a book about a revolution, look beyond the grand speeches and battlefields. Think of the quiet moments, the secret meetings in candlelit basements. Think of the trembling hands, sewing a message into a coat, a simple act of defiance that could change the course of the world. These are the stories that remind us that history is made not just by the powerful, but by the brave, the clever, and the determined, one hidden stitch at a time. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this glimpse into the hidden world of historical espionage fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the shadows of the past. Let me know in the comments what other secret historical methods you find intriguing. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered what secrets lie hidden in the golden fields of wheat, rustling under the moonlit sky? It's a story not often told, a tale of courage whispered on the wind. Tonight, we journey back in time, to an era where the amber waves of grain held more than just the promise of bread. They held the key to survival, a lifeline for a community on the brink. Imagine this, a vast expanse of wheat, shimmering like a sea of gold under the sun. By day, it's a picture of peace and abundance, the pride of the farmers who toil from dawn till dusk. But when darkness falls, a different kind of work begins. The fields transform into a stage for a silent, clandestine operation. The air grows thick with anticipation. The only sounds the chirping of crickets and the hushed whispers of determined men and women. Under the faint glow of a sliver of moon, figures move stealthily between the rows of wheat. These aren't thieves in the traditional sense. They are farmers, fathers, mothers, and neighbors. Their faces, etched with worry but firm with resolve, are illuminated for fleeting moments. They work with a practiced urgency, their hands deftly cutting stalks and gathering sheaves. This isn't their own harvest they're taking. It's a portion they must hide, a secret stash to protect their families from a looming hunger they know is coming. Each stalk is precious, each grain a symbol of defiance. They fill heavy burlap sacks, the rough texture of familiar comfort against their calloused hands. The sacks are tied shut, their contents a heavy secret. One by one, these sacks are carried to the edge of the field, where a simple wooden wagon waits, concealed in the shadows of a large oak tree. A sturdy horse, its breath visible in the cool night air, stands patiently, as if it understands the gravity of the mission. The loading is a masterpiece of silent cooperation. No words are spoken, only hand signals and knowing glances. The sacks are heavy, but the weight is shared. They are carefully arranged on the wagon bed, a precious cargo of hope. A heavy canvas is thrown over the top, disguising the life-sustaining grain as a mundane load of hay or supplies. The farmers pat the horse's neck, a silent thank you, before melting back into the shadows of the field, their part in this nightly ritual complete. Now, our journey truly begins. The wagon driver, a lone, stoic figure, clicks the reins. The wheels begin to turn, their creak muffled by the soft earth. The destination is a secret, a place known only to a trusted few. The path leads away from the open fields and into the deep, mysterious woods. As the wagon enters the forest, a thick fog rolls in, wrapping the trees in a ghostly embrace. It's as if nature itself is providing a cloak for this secret mission. The cinematic lighting of the moon pierces through the fog and the dense canopy of leaves, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. The path is narrow and winding. The horse navigates it with an instinctual grace, its hooves crunching softly on fallen leaves and twigs. The driver remains vigilant, his eyes scanning the shrouded path ahead. Every snap of a twig, every hoot of a distant owl, sends a jolt of adrenaline through him. Discovery would mean disaster for everyone. The forest is both a sanctuary and a source of peril. Its dense foliage hides the wagon from prying eyes, but it also holds unknown dangers. The journey is slow, a test of nerve and patience. Hours pass, marked only by the changing position of the moon in the sky. The driver thinks of the faces of his neighbors, the hungry children, the elderly who depend on this grain. This thought fuels his determination, pushing away the fear that gnaws at the edges of his mind. He is not just transporting grain. He's carrying the future of his community on his wagon. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the wagon emerges from the deepest part of the woods. Ahead, silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky, is an old, forgotten structure. It's a dusty, dilapidated warehouse, a relic from a bygone era. Its location, a well-guarded secret. This is the final destination. This is the sanctuary. The wagon rolls to a quiet stop beside a large, creaking door. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of old wood, dust, and dry earth. Beams of early morning sunlight cut through the cracks in the walls and roof, illuminating swirling motes of dust in the air. The light reveals the warehouse's hidden contents, piles of antique grain sacks, neatly stacked and carefully organized. This is not the first delivery, nor will it be the last. This hidden cache is a testament to the community's foresight and resilience. The driver unloads his cargo, adding the new sacks to the growing stockpile. The texture of each sack is realistic. You can almost feel the rough burlap and the weight of the grain within. These aren't just sacks, they are individual promises. Each one a meal, a day of life, a victory against despair. The realistic detail of the scene is striking the frayed edges of the older sacks, the faint stenciling of mills long since closed, the way the sunlight highlights the texture of the woven fibers. This dusty warehouse is more than just a storage space. It's a library of hope, each sack a volume in a story of survival. It represents a silent pact made between neighbors, an unspoken promise to look out for one another, no matter the cost. In a world of uncertainty and hardship, this hidden supply is their anchor, their assurance that they will face the future together. As the sun climbs higher, the driver prepares for his return journey. His wagon is now empty, his mission for the night complete. He will travel back the way he came, his tracks hopefully erased by the morning dew. No one will ever know of his midnight ride, or the precious cargo he delivered. The secret of the warehouse, and the hope it contains, remains safe. This story of the golden wheat fields and the hidden supplies is a powerful reminder of the strength of community and the quiet courage of ordinary people in extraordinary times. It's a narrative woven into the very fabric of our history, a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, to provide, and to protect. It shows us that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism aren't performed on a battlefield, but in the silent, moonlit fields and dusty, forgotten warehouses. Thank you for joining me on this journey tonight. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more tales hidden just beneath the surface of our world. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever wondered how ancient empires sent messages across vast, rugged landscapes before the age of instant communication? It wasn't with phones or satellites, but with something far more primal and visually stunning. A chain of signal fires. Imagine this. A lone rider, a silhouette against a fiery sunset, gallops desperately along a treacherous cliffside. The wind whips at their cloak. The horse's hooves thunder against the rock, and below, a sheer drop to the valley floor. This isn't just a journey. It's a race against time. The fate of a kingdom, the lives of thousands, rests on this one rider reaching their destination. This scene a classic staple of epic fantasy and historical dramas, is more than just a beautiful cinematic shot. It represents the very beginning of a complex communication network, a system of life and death. The rider's mission is to light the first beacon, to send a spark of warning or a call to arms into the encroaching darkness. As night falls, the world is plunged into an abyss of black, punctuated only by the distant twinkle of stars. The air grows cold, the silence deep and heavy. And then it happens. On a distant mountain peak, a single point of light erupts. A flame, small at first, then growing into a raging bonfire, tearing a hole in the fabric of the night. It's a breathtaking sight, a symbol of defiance against the overwhelming darkness. But this is just the beginning. Look closer, across the jagged horizon. Another peak, miles away, sees the signal, and in response, its own fire springs to life. Then another, and another. A luminous chain reaction spreading across the mountain range. This is the Great Warning, the lighting of the beacons. We're going to dive deep into how these ancient alarm systems actually worked. It wasn't just about lighting a pile of wood. There were codes, specific sequences of smoke and flame, prearranged meanings that could convey complex messages. A single plume of smoke might mean enemy sighted, while two could signal we are under attack. At night, the number of fires or their positioning could carry different information. It was a sophisticated, if slow, form of binary code. The Romans, the Greeks, the ancient Chinese, they all perfected their own versions of this system. The Great Wall of China, for example, wasn't just a physical barrier. It was a communication superhighway. Its watchtowers were spaced perfectly within sight of each other, allowing signals to travel hundreds of miles in just a few hours. Think about the logistics involved. Each beacon station had to be constantly manned, stocked with fuel wood, straw, even wolf dung for a smokier signal end, ready to ignite at a moment's notice. The sentinels who manned these lonely outposts were the unsung heroes, living in isolation, their eyes perpetually scanning the horizon for that first flicker of light or puff of smoke. Let's explore the science behind it. For a signal fire to be effective, it needs to be seen. This meant choosing the highest, most prominent locations. But it also depended on weather. Fog, rain, or even a hazy day could render the entire system useless. This unreliability was the system's greatest weakness. Imagine the anxiety of a general, waiting for a signal that never comes. Unsure if it's because all is well, or because the line has been broken, the sentinels silenced. This concept has been immortalized in our culture, most famously in The Lord of the Rings. The lighting of the beacons of Gondor is one of the most powerful and goosebump-inducing moments in the entire story. It's a sequence that perfectly captures the scale, the desperation, and the hope embodied by these chains of fire. It's a visual symphony of light and shadow, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest of times, a single light can ignite a revolution, unite a scattered people, and turn the tide of war. We see this same idea echoed in other stories. Think about the signal fires in Disney's Mulan, used to warn of the Hun invasion, or the historical accounts of the Byzantine Empire's beacon system, which could allegedly transmit a message from the frontier to the capital in under an hour. This wasn't just fiction, it was a real-world strategy that shaped the course of history. But what did it feel like to be there? To be the one to light that first fire? Picture the immense pressure. You've seen the enemy approaching. You scramble to your post, your hands trembling as you strike flint and steel. The kindling catches. Smoke stings your eyes. You feed the flames, watching them grow, praying that your counterpart on the next peak is watching, that they see your signal, that they understand its terrible meaning. And then, the relief and terror that washes over you when you see their answering flame ignite in the distance. The message is on its way. You've done your part. Now, let's consider the enemy's perspective. For an invading army, these signal fires were a major problem. They eliminated the element of surprise. A key strategy would be to disrupt the chain too, capture a beacon tower before its fire could be lit, effectively cutting the line of communication and blinding the defending kingdom. This added another layer of danger and importance to the lives of those isolated sentinels. They weren't just watchmen, they were the first line of defense. The evolution from simple bonfires to more complex systems is fascinating. Some cultures used shutters or panels to flash signals, similar to a crude form of Morse code, allowing for more detailed messages than just on or off. The Greek historian Polybius described a system using torches and tablets that could spell out messages, letter by letter, though it was incredibly cumbersome and required clear visibility. These fiery chains represent a fundamental human drive. The need to connect, to share information, to stand together against a common threat. They were the internet of their day, a network built not of fiber optics and satellites, but of fire, courage, and the unwavering gaze of a watchful eye. They remind us that for millennia, communication was a physical, tangible act, a struggle against distance and darkness. The image of signal fires lighting up one by one across a vast, nocturnal landscape is more than just an epic visual. It's a powerful metaphor for hope, for unity, and for the enduring power of a simple message to change the world. It's the spark that ignites a rebellion, the light that guides armies, the first word in the story of survival. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is a single, shared signa, passed from one hand to the next, burning brightly against the night sky. Thank you so much for watching. If you love diving into the epic stories and hidden histories behind iconic fantasy and movie moments, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you and miss our next adventure. See you in the next video. Picture a small, unassuming church tucked away on a quiet street. To the passerby, it's a place of quiet reflection, of Sunday sermons and hushed prayers. But hidden within its walls, a revolution was being stitched together, one thread at a time. This wasn't a story of grand battles or famous generals, but of ordinary women performing an extraordinary act of defiance. In the midst of the Second World War, as conflict raged across Europe, a network of secret workshops sprang up in the most unlikely of places. Churches, basements, and attics transformed into hives of activity. Here, far from the prying eyes of occupying forces, women gathered not just for solace, but for a mission. Their weapons weren't guns or bombs, but needles, thread, and salvaged fabric. Their battleground was a cutting table, their strategy sessions held in hushed whispers over the hum of a sewing machine or the rhythmic click of knitting needles. Imagine the scene: a dimly lit room, the air thick with the smell of damp wool and hot tea. Steam rises from mugs, a fleeting warmth against the biting cold that seeps through the stone walls. Piles of rough, utilitarian fabric canvas, burlap, old blankets are stacked high, waiting to be transformed. These weren't fine silks or delicate lace. This was the stuff of survival. The women worked with a quiet, fierce intensity, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of a low-hanging lamp or the flickering flames of a fireplace, were a study in concentration. Some were young, their hands still nimble and quick. Others were older, their fingers gnarled by years of hard work, yet they stitched with a precision born of a lifetime of practice. You can almost see the deep lines of concentration etched on their brows, their lips pressed together in a silent prayer for speed and accuracy. Every stitch was an act of rebellion. They weren't just making clothes, they were creating lifelines. They sewed uniforms for resistance fighters, giving them the anonymity to move through cities undetected. They knitted warm socks, sweaters, and scarves for downed Allied airmen hiding in the countryside, protecting them from the brutal winter elements as they awaited safe passage home. They mended torn garments for families who had lost everything, offering a small but powerful symbol of care and continuity in a world torn apart. This work was incredibly dangerous. Discovery meant certain arrest, interrogation, and worse. Every knock at the door, every unfamiliar footstep on the street outside, sent a jolt of fear through the room. Materials were scarce and had to be smuggled in, often at great personal risk. Old coats were unpicked, their thread carefully saved. Parachutes, once used to deliver supplies or soldiers, were repurposed, their precious silk and nylon transformed into essential items. It was a masterpiece of ingenuity born from sheer necessity. Look closer at their hands. You'd see calluses and needle pricks, the telltale signs of their tireless labor. They worked day and night, their efforts fueled by a potent mix of patriotism, compassion, and sheer grit. They were mothers, daughters, sisters, and wives, each with their own fears and heartaches. They worried for their loved ones on the front lines, for the safety of their children, for the future of their country. Yet, they channeled that anxiety into action. The piles of finished goods grew steadily. A stack of woolen socks, each pair identical, a testament to their disciplined effort. A pile of rough-spun shirts, ready to be bundled and spirited away under the cover of darkness. These weren't just objects. They were messages of hope. Each garment carried with it the silent support and unwavering resolve of the women who made it. For a resistance fighter receiving a new shirt or a pilot pulling on a warm sweater, it was a tangible connection to a network of support, a reminder that they were not alone. These workshops were more than just production centers. They were sanctuaries in a world defined by chaos and violence. They offered a space where women could contribute, where they could exercise agency and fight back in the best way they knew how. The shared purpose forged powerful bonds of sisterhood. They shared stories, offered comfort, and drew strength from one another. The steady rhythm of their work became a form of meditation, a way to impose order on a world that had lost its mind. Think about the incredible logistics. A coded message would arrive, a request for a dozen pairs of boots, size 10, or 3 coats, large. The women would get to work, measuring, cutting, and stitching with ruthless efficiency. Once completed, the items had to be delivered. A clandestine network of couriers, often young boys or unassuming elderly women, would transport the bundles, navigating checkpoints and patrols, their hearts pounding with every step. These secret sewing circles operated across occupied Europe, from France and Belgium to Poland and the Netherlands. They were a vital, yet often overlooked, part of the resistance movement. Their story isn't found in most mainstream history books, which tend to focus on the grand military campaigns, but their contribution was immeasurable. They clothed the resistance, warmed the hidden, and stitched the very fabric of hope back into a continent that was falling apart at the seams. Today, all that remains are the stories, passed down through generations, and the occasional artifact, preserved in a local museum, a crudely made shirt, a well-worn pair of socks. They may seem like simple objects, but they are monuments to the quiet courage and resilience of these unsung heroes. They remind us that acts of defiance come in many forms, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon is a needle and thread, wielded with purpose and a belief in a better tomorrow. The legacy of these women endures. It's a powerful reminder that in times of crisis, ordinary people are capable of extraordinary things. It's about community, resourcefulness, and the unbreakable spirit that refuses to be extinguished, even in the darkest of times. The hum of their sewing machines has long since faded, but the echo of their bravery and determination can still be heard. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as I did, please like, share, and subscribe for more hidden histories. Your support helps us continue to bring these important stories to light. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what it takes to turn a pile of forgotten metal into something truly extraordinary? Today, we're diving deep into the ancient and mesmerizing world of metal. We're not just talking about bending steel. We're talking about rebirth, about taking the ordinary and forging it into the exceptional. Stick around, because you're about to witness a transformation that's as old as civilization itself, but with a modern twist. Our journey begins not in a pristine factory, but here, in the heart of the workshop. This place is a sanctuary of fire, steel, and sweat. Look around you. Every tool, every hammer, every anvil has a story. They are the silent partners in a dance of creation. The air is thick with the smell of coal and hot metal, a scent that blacksmiths have known for millennia. This isn't just a craft, it's a legacy passed down through generations. A testament to human ingenuity and our desire to shape the world around us. The first step in any great forging project is gathering the raw materials. But we're not starting with a perfect, clean billet of steel. Our challenge and our art is to unite them, to purify them, and to give them a new, singular purpose. With our collection of scrap metal assembled, the real magic can begin. And that magic starts with fire. The forge is the heart of the workshop, a roaring beast that we must tame. We're talking about temperatures that can exceed 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. At this heat, solid, unyielding metal begins to surrender. It blushes, then glows, transforming from a dull gray to a vibrant orange. then a brilliant yellow-white. It becomes pliable, like clay in a potter's hands. Controlling this fire is an art form in itself. Too little heat, and the metal refuses to move. Too much, and you risk burning it, ruining its integrity forever. It's a delicate balance, a conversation between the smith and the flames. As the metal reaches its critical temperature, a new process begins. Smelting, we're not just melting, we're purifying it. Inside the crucible, a ceramic pot built to withstand incredible heat. The different pieces of scrap begin to lose their individual identities. They liquefy, merging into a single, molten pool. As they melt, impurities, known as slag, rise to the surface. It's a fascinating process to watch. The lighter dross separates from the heavier, purer metal below. We carefully skim this slag off, discarding the waste, until all that remains is a shimmering, incandescent, liquid pure, raw potential, ready to be reborn. Now for one of the most visually stunning moments in all of metalworking. The pour. This is a moment of truth, where precision and confidence are paramount. These ingots will be our starting point, our standardized blocks of purified metal from which we can forge anything we can imagine. The liquid metal fills the molds, a brilliant, fiery orange against the dark, gritty sand. Once our ingots have cooled and solidified, the true work of the blacksmith begins. With every blow, we are not just changing the shape of the metal, we are refining its internal structure. We need to establish the bevel-y, angled surfaces that will eventually form the cutting edge. This requires a different kind of hammer blow, angled and precise. We are essentially pushing the metal from the spine towards the edge, carefully creating the cross-section of the blade. All the while, we must manage our heat. Let the metal cool too much, and it becomes brittle, risking cracks. We constantly return it to the forge, reheating, and then back to the anvil, in a rhythm that has been perfected over centuries. Sparks fly with every strike, a shower of tiny, burning pieces of iron, creating a spectacle of light in the dim workshop. After hours of forging, the rough shape of a sword is finally visible. It has a point, a spine, and the beginnings of an edge, but it's still crude, covered in hammer marks and fire scale. Now, we move from brute force to fine control. The process of grinding and filing begins. Using grinders and hand files, we refine the profile, smooth the surfaces, and perfect the geometry of the blade. This is where the true lines of the sword emerge from the rough forged steel. It's a meticulous, dusty process that requires an incredible amount of patience and an eye for detail. We're not just making it look good. We are ensuring the blade is balanced, that the weight is distributed correctly for its intended use. This phase can take just as long, if not longer, than the initial forging. Now we approach the most critical, and perhaps most nerve-wracking, step in the entire process. The heat treatment. This is what will transform our shaped piece of steel into a true, functional blade. It involves two key stages: hardening and tempering. First, we carefully heat the entire blade to a precise, non-magnetic temperature. The color is the key indicator, a specific shade of cherry red. Once it hits that exact point, it is plunged swiftly into a quenching medium, often oil or water. The sudden, extreme cooling locks the steel's crystal structure into a very hard, but very brittle state. The blade is now hard enough to hold a razor edge, but so brittle it could shatter like glass if dropped. This is why the final step, tempering, is so crucial. The hardened blade is cleaned and then gently reheated to a much lower temperature. As it heats up, you can watch a rainbow of oxide colors travel across the polished steel, from pale straw to peacock blue to gray. Each color corresponds to a specific temperature and a specific level of hardness. For a sword, we want a combination of a hard edge and a tough, flexible spine. By carefully controlling this heat, we draw back some of the brittleness, trading a small amount of hardness for a huge increase in toughness. This is the step that gives the blade its resilience, its ability to flex and bend without breaking. It's the true soul of the blade. With the heat treatment complete, all that's left is the final finishing. We sharpen the edge, polish the blade to its final luster, and construct the hilt to guard, grip, and pommel. These are crafts in their own right, often involving woodworking, leather wrapping, and casting other metals like brass or bronze. When the hilt is finally fitted to the temps of the blade, the transformation is complete. From a pile of discarded scrap metal, through the crucible of fire and the force of the hammer, a new object of purpose and beauty has been born. It's a testament to the enduring power of this ancient craft. It shows that with heat, pressure, and skill, we can turn the forgotten into the magnificent. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey from scrap to sword. If you found this process as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures in making. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see us forge next. Until then, stay creative. Have you ever wondered what it was like to be a nurse during a time of great conflict, long before the sterile, brightly lit hospitals we know today? Imagine a world where the front lines of medicine weren't in gleaming buildings, but in the rustic, humble confines of a barn. Sunlight streams through the gaps in the wooden planks, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, catching on bundles of medicinal herbs hanging from the rafters to dry. The air itself is a complex mixture of scents, dry hay, the earthy aroma of herbs, and the sharp, antiseptic smell of early medicines. This wasn't just a barn, it was a sanctuary, a place of healing carved out of the chaos of war. Here, rows of old glass bottles, each containing a precious liquid, a powder, or a balm, line makeshift shelves. They glint in the soft light, holding the promise of relief. The floor is covered with straw, rustling softly underfoot. And on simple cots, wounded soldiers lie resting, their faces etched with the stories of battles fought. This is a scene of quiet resilience, a testament to human compassion in the face of immense suffering. The atmosphere is hushed, broken only by the soft murmur of voices, a gentle cough, or the rustle of a blanket. Every object tells a story, from two worn-out tools to the tattered uniforms. Let's zoom in on a single, powerful moment. Focus on a pair of hands. They're not the hands of a surgeon in a modern operating theater, but those of a nurse, working with quiet determination. A piece of clean, white cloth is dipped into a bowl of water. Her movements are steady and practiced as she gently cleans a soldier's wound. The lighting is soft, almost like a Renaissance painting, highlighting the textures, the rough fabric, the smooth skin, the glint of water. There is an incredible tenderness in this simple act. It's a moment of profound humanity, a quiet promise that even in the darkest of times, today's care, today's hope. These nurses were the unsung heroes. They worked with limited resources, relying on knowledge passed down through generations, combined with the emerging science of their time. They didn't have monitors that beep or advanced surgical tools. Their most important instruments were their hands, their sharp eyes, and their empathetic hearts. They learned to read the subtle signs of fever, of infection, of healing. They comforted the fearful, wrote letters home for those who couldn't, and held hands during final moments. Their work was physically demanding and emotionally draining, yet they persevered. The herbs hanging from the ceiling weren't just for decoration. Chamomile for calming nerves and aiding sleep. Yarrow, known for centuries as a stauncher of blood. Willow bark, a natural source of pain relief, the precursor to modern aspirin. Each plant was a piece of a natural pharmacy, carefully harvested and prepared. The nurses would crush leaves to make poultices, boil roots to create tinctures, and infuse flowers for soothing teas. It was a blend of science and folk wisdom, a practical application of botany in a life-or-death situation. Look closer at the soldiers. They are young, mostly. Boys who had left farms and cities to fight for a cause they believed in. Now, they lie here, vulnerable and dependent on the care of strangers. There's a quiet camaraderie in the barn. A soldier with a bandaged arm might help another who can't sit up to drink. A shared glance across the room speaks volumes. They are brothers in arms, and now, brothers in recovery. The barn, this makeshift hospital, becomes a temporary home. A community forged in shared hardship, and a collective will to survive. Imagine the sounds. The distant rumble of artillery, a constant reminder of the world just outside these wooden walls. The whinny of a horse in a nearby stable. The gentle cooing of pigeons nesting in the eaves. These sounds of rural life mingle with the human sounds of the ward, creating a unique soundscape. It's a place suspended between war and peace, between life and the possibility of death. The cinematic, vintage feel of this scene isn't just an aesthetic choice. It reflects the grainy, filtered way we often remember the past. The nurse finishes cleaning the wound. She applies a simple salve from a small tin jar and then carefully wraps it with a fresh bandage. Her touch is firm but gentle. For a moment, her hand rests on the soldier's forearm, a simple gesture of reassurance. He might be unconscious, or perhaps he just manages a weak nod of gratitude. In that single touch, there is a powerful exchange of strength and comfort. This is what healing truly is. It's not just about mending the body. It's about tending to the spirit. It's about acknowledging pain and offering solace. These makeshift hospitals were everywhere during major conflicts like the American Civil War or World War I. They were in churches, in private homes, in factories, and yes, in barns. They represent a massive civilian effort, a mobilization of people who wanted to help. Women, in particular, found new roles and responsibilities, stepping into the world of medicine in ways they never had before. They challenged conventions and proved their incredible capability and bravery, paving the way for future generations of medical professionals. Let's pull back and take in the whole scene one more time. The soft, emotional lighting creates long shadows, giving the space a sense of depth and sanctity. It's a place of quiet dignity. The focus on hands, on simple actions, on the interplay of light and shadow, tells a more powerful story than any grand battle scene ever could. It reminds us that history is not just about dates and famous generals. It's about the individual, human experiences. It's about the small acts of kindness that illuminate the darkest chapters of our past. These imágenes, these moments, are important. They connect us to our history and remind us of the enduring power of the human spirit. They show us that even with the most basic tools, the most fundamental human instinct is to care for one another. The barn, with its hay and its herbs and its wounded soldiers, is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a symbol of hope, a testament to the fact that compassion can flourish in the most unlikely of places. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story moving, please like, share, and subscribe for more glimpses into the human side of history. In the dim, smoky air of a tavern, where shadows dance like ghosts to the rhythm of flickering candlelight, a story of sacrifice is unfolding. Faces, etched with desperation and hope, gather around a scarred wooden table. One by one, hands tremble as they present their most precious possessions. A simple gold band, once a promise of forever, is slipped from a weathered finger. A silver locket, holding the image of a loved one, is unclasped with a final, sorrowful glance. These aren't just trinkets. They are memories, legacies, the last tangible pieces of a life that was. They are laid before a figure cloaked in shadow, a rebel leader whose eyes hold the weight of their collective burden. Each piece of jewelry represents a stake in a future they can only dare to imagine, a down payment on freedom bought with the currency of love and loss. This is the quiet, heartbreaking costs of revolution, whispered in the glint of gold and the silent tears of those who give everything. But what happens to such treasures? Where does the price of a rebellion go? Sometimes it's spent on weapons and supplies. Other times, it's hidden, buried, and forgotten, becoming a legend whispered by the descendants of those who sacrificed. Imagine, generations later, a dusty attic, a loose floorboard, a forgotten corner of a cellar. A creak of old wood reveals not just a box, but a time capsule. Inside, nestled in decaying velvet, lies the treasure of the forgotten cause. This brings us to a fascinating discovery that feels like it pulled straight from such a legend. In a small village in northern Poland, a routine archaeological survey took an incredible turn. The team was investigating the site of an old, long-demolished cinema. As they carefully excavated the foundations, they unearthed a hidden chest. It wasn't large, but it was heavy, and the air around it seemed thick with mystery. Prying open the rusted latch, they weren't greeted by pirate gold, but by something far more personal and poignant. Inside, a vast collection of jewelry, watches, and personal keepsakes lay tangled together. Over 1,000 items were packed within this small container. There were wedding rings, engagement rings, intricate brooches, and elegant pocket watches. Each piece was a ghost, a whisper from the past. Why were they all here, buried beneath the cinema? The answer lies in the dark history of the 1930s and 40s. As tensions rose across Europe, Jewish families, facing persecution and the looming threat of the Holocaust, sought to protect their most valuable and sentimental possessions, unable to carry everything with them as they were forced into ghettos or fled for their lives. Many chose to bury their heirlooms. They hoped, against all odds, that they would one day return to reclaim them. This chest was one such hoard, a capsule of hope buried in the earth. The cinema was likely built over the site years later, its foundation inadvertently sealing this treasure away, protecting it from being found until now. Looking at the images of these items is profoundly moving. You can almost feel the history clinging to them. A delicate silver bracelet, a man's sturdy signet ring, a string of pearls, World War X. What promises were whispered as that ring was placed on a finger? What special occasion was marked by the gift of that bracelet? These were not just objects of monetary value. They were extensions of people's lives, symbols of their identities, their loves, and their families. The archaeologists handling these items speak of the immense responsibility they feel. They're not just cataloging artifacts. They are stewarding memories. The goal now is to trace the original owners or their descendants. It's a monumental task, a detective story spanning nearly a century, using markings on the jewelry, historical records, and genealogical research. They hope to piece together the stories of the families who buried their lives in a box, praying for a future they would never see. This discovery is a powerful reminder that history is not just about grand battles and famous leaders. It's about ordinary people caught in extraordinary circumstances, making impossible choices. It's about the quiet acts of hope and defiance. A wedding ring given to a cause, or a locket buried in the dirt both, are acts of faith in a future beyond the darkness of the present. Imagine another scenario, one from the annals of American history. During the Civil War, families on both sides faced constant uncertainty. Armies marched across farmlands, homes were requisitioned, and fortunes were lost overnight. In the South, wealthy plantation owners, fearing the advance of Union troops, often buried their silver jewelry and gold coins. These became the basis for countless local legends of buried Confederate gold, stories that have fueled treasure hunters for over 150 years. Many of these caches were never recovered. The person who buried them may have died in battle, or the family may have been displaced, the location lost to memory. Occasionally, a flood will wash away a riverbank, or a construction crew will dig a new foundation, and a piece of this history will surface. A small, tarnished chest filled with gold dollars and family silverware, telling a story of a world turned upside down. It's the same human impulse, repeated across time and cultures. When faced with chaos and the potential loss of everything, we cling to what matters. We try to save not just our wealth, but our heritage. We bury it, hoping to preserve a piece of ourselves for the future. Let's return to our tavern scene. The rebel leader gathers the donated treasures. The metal is cold to the touch, but it feels warm with the sacrifice it represents. He knows that these rings and necklaces are not just funding for his rebellion. They are a sacred trust. He has two choices. He can melt them down, turning these unique symbols of love and family into anonymous bars of gold and silver to buy guns and bread. It's the practical choice, the one that directly serves the war effort. Or he can choose to preserve them. He can find a secure, hidden place, a forgotten cellar, a hollow tree, a secret compartment, and place them there. This choice is not about practicality, it's about honor. It's a promise that if they succeed, if they win the freedom they are fighting for, these symbols will be returned. It's a belief that the individual stories matter, that the memories held within this metal are as important as the cause itself. This is the choice that creates a legend. This is the choice that leads to a dusty chest being discovered a century later, leaving us to wonder about the lives it touched. Every old coin, every tarnished locket found in the dirt has a story to tell. It's a story of fear, of hope, of love, and of loss. When we find these hidden treasures, we are not just finding objects. We are connecting with the people who held them. We are bearing witness to their struggles and their dreams. The Polish cinema treasure, the legends of Confederate gold, the imagined hoard of a rebel cause, they all speak to this fundamental human desire to endure, to leave a mark, and to hope that someday someone will find it and remember. The archaeologists in Poland have a long road ahead, But each piece of jewelry they identify, each family they connect with, is a victory. It's a promise fulfilled, a memory restored. It proves that even when buried under decades of dirt and concrete, the most personal parts of our history can never be truly erased. They're just waiting for the right moment to be brought back into the light. Thank you for watching. And if you find these stories as fascinating as I do, be sure to subscribe for more journeys into the hidden corners of history. The river breathes a silent mist, a ghostly exhalation that clings to the water's surface. Under the watchful eye of a sliver moon, the world is reduced to shades of gray and black. The only sounds are the rhythmic dip and pull of oars, muffled by the thick, damp air. Small wooden boats, like phantoms, glide across the inky blackness. They move without a ripple, without a whisper. Their occupants mere silhouettes against the faint, lunar glow. Who are these men? And what purpose brings them to this haunted stretch of water in the dead of night? Their destination is a desolate bank, a stretch of mud and grasping roots, where the land dissolves into the river. The boat snows into the shore with a soft, sucking sound. The men, their faces hidden by shadow and the brims of their hats, begin their work. There is no command given, no word exchanged. Each knows his part in this silent play. They move with a practiced efficiency, a choreography born of repetition and necessity. The air is thick with suspense. Each rustle of leaves in the unseen forest, each distant cry of a night bird, stretching the tension to its breaking point. Now, the cargoed, heavy wooden crates, bound with iron, are lifted from the boats. The men strain, their muscles bunching under coarse-spun shirts, but they make no sound of exertion. It's a labor of stealth. They place the crates onto the muddy ground with a care that seems almost reverent. What secrets do they hold? What contraband or treasure is so precious it demands this level of secrecy? This dance with the shadows. The operation is a well-oiled machine, each man a cog turning in perfect synchrony with the others. The only light, besides the moon's cold stare, comes from a few hooded lanterns placed strategically on the bank. Their warm, flickering glow seems feeble against the overwhelming dark, but it is a who's to note. The light catches the sheen of sweat on a man's brow, the glint of a buckle, the rough grain of the wooden crates. It casts long dancing shadows that twist and writhe like living things. The reflections of the lanterns tremble on the water's surface, golden spears piercing the black, a fleeting beauty in this clandestine world. The scene feels hyper-realistic, as if you could reach out and feel the damp chill in the air, smell the rich, earthy scent of the mud and the faint, metallic temps of the river. One by one, the boats are emptied. The pile of crates on the shore grows, a dark monument to the night's illicit labor. A man stands guard, a little apart from the others. He's a statue, his form blending into the gnarled trunk of an ancient willow tree. His head turns slowly, methodically, scanning the river, the opposite bank, the wall of trees behind them. He is the watcher, the sentinel whose senses are strained to detect any sign of intrusion, any threat that might bring this entire operation crashing down. His stillness is more menacing than any movement. The atmosphere is a physical presence. It's the cold seeping through your clothes, the prickle of unease on your skin, the way your own breathing seems too loud in the profound silence. You can almost taste the fear, the adrenaline that fuels these men. Every splash, every muted thud of a crate echoes in the stillness, magnified 100 times. This isn't just work. It's a gamble, a high-stakes bet made against the dawn, against the law, against discovery. The river itself seems to be holding its breath, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. Suddenly, a twig snaps in the woods. Every man freezes. Bodies become rigid, hands hovering over crates, heads snapping towards the sound. The silence that follows is deafening, a vacuum where even the chirping of crickets seems to have ceased. The sentinel raises a hand, a slow, deliberate gesture. Is it a signal to halt, or a warning of imminent danger? The seconds stretch into an eternity. The men wait, poised on a knife's edge between the successful completion of their task and a disastrous end. The lantern light flickers across their tense faces, revealing eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance. The sound is not repeated. A false alarm. A foraging animal. After a moment that feels like a lifetime, The sentinel gives a subtle nod. The work resumes, but the rhythm is broken. The earlier fluidity is replaced by a new urgency, a hurried, almost frantic pace. They know their window of safety is closing. The moon is beginning its descent, and the first hint of gray is starting to lighten the eastern sky. Dawn is the enemy, the great revealer of secrets. They must be gone before it arrives. The last crate is hefted onto the muddy bank. Another team of shadows emerges from the tree line, ready to haul the cargo away into the depths of the forest. The exchange is as silent as everything that came before it. The boatmen push off from the shore, their oars once again dipping into the water. They don't look back. They melt back into the fog from which they came. Their part in the night's story concluded. As they disappear, the mist seems to thicken, swallowing them whole, erasing any evidence they were ever there. On the bank, the lanterns are extinguished, one by one, plunging the scene into near-total darkness. The only proof of the night's events is the disturbed mud and the faint scent of wet wood and human sweat hanging in the air. The river continues its timeless journey, carrying its secrets downstream. What was in those crates? Where were they going? These questions linger in the pre-dawn chill, unanswered. The story is over, but the mystery remains, as deep and murky as the water itself. This was just one night, one clandestine transaction on a forgotten river. A small, hidden gear in a much larger, unseen machine. And tomorrow night, on this river or another, the silent boats will likely row again. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows. What do you think was in the crates? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this atmospheric story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time. History is often told through grand battles and charismatic leaders, but sometimes the most decisive factor is something far more primal: hunger. Today, we're diving into one of history's most harrowing military disasters. A story not of clashing swords, but of empty stomachs and the unforgiving cold. This is the tale of Napoleon's catastrophic retreat from Moscow in 1812, an event that shattered an empire and redefined the very concept of military logistics. Imagine this: the Grande Army, the most powerful fighting force in the world, over 500,000 strong, marching into the vastness of Russia. Napoleon Bonaparte, the master of Europe, believed victory was inevitable. He planned for a short, decisive campaign. But the Russians had a different strategy, one that didn't rely on pitched battles. They employed a scorched earth policy, retreating deeper and deeper into their homeland, burning crops, destroying villages, and leaving nothing for the invading army to live on. Napoleon's supply line, the lifeline of his army, was stretched to its breaking point. It was the longest any European army had ever attempted to maintain. The wagons, pulled by weary horses, struggled over poor roads that turned to thick, impassable mud with the autumn rains. A single broken wagon wheel, a common occurrence, could halt an entire section of the supply train for hours, even days. These weren't just delays. They were death sentences in slow motion. Each stalled wagon meant less food, less ammunition, and less medical supplies reaching the front. By the time Napoleon's army reached a deserted and burning Moscow in September, they were already weakened. They had won the brutal Battle of Borodino, but at a terrible cost. They expected to find shelter and provisions in the city, to rest and resupply for the winter. Instead, they found an empty, smoldering shell. The fires, set by Russian patriots, consumed what little hope remained. Napoleon waited for a month, expecting Tsar Alexander the First to surrender. The surrender never came. With no prospects of being supplied and winter closing in, the decision was made. On October 19th, the long retreat began. This is where the true horror unfolds. The Grande Armée, now laden with loot from Moscow, but critically low on food, turned back the way they came. They had no choice but to retrace their steps through a landscape they had already stripped bare. The vast, empty plains of Russia became their prison. Then, the snow began to fall. And it didn't stop. Early, heavy, and relentless. The Russian winter arrived with a vengeance. Temperatures plummeted 2 levels the French and their allies, many from warmer parts of Europe, had never experienced. Frostbite became as common as a cough. Soldiers' boots, worn thin from months of marching, fell apart, leaving them to wrap their feet in rags. Their once proud uniforms became tattered shrouds that offered little protection against the biting wind and driving snow. The retreat became a desperate, stumbling march for survival. Discipline crumbled. The army disintegrated into a mob of freezing, starving individuals. The sight of an empty food bag was a symbol of utter despair. Soldiers would fight to the death over a handful of grain or a piece of horseflesh, cut from animals that had frozen to death on the road. The bonds of camaraderie, forged in 100 battles, dissolved in the face of gnawing hunger. Men who had stood shoulder to shoulder against cannon fire now saw their comrades as rivals for the last crust of bread. The Russian partisans and the regular Cossack cavalry were like wolves circling a dying animal. They never engaged in a full-scale battle. They didn't need to. They harassed the flanks of the column, picking off stragglers, attacking isolated supply wagons that had somehow made it this far. Imagine the terror. You're trudging through knee-deep snow, half blind from the blizzard, and suddenly, the silent white landscape erupts with the shouts of Cossacks. A volley of fire, a quick, brutal skirmish, and then silence again, leaving behind only frozen bodies in a burning wagon. Its smoke a dark plume against the gray sky. These burning supply lines weren't just tactical losses, they were beacons of hopelessness. For the soldiers struggling miles behind, that rising smoke signaled that the little food they might have reached was now gone. Turn it to us. It was a psychological blow that crushed what little morale was left. The road was littered with the frozen dead, abandoned equipment, and the ruins of villages that offered no shelter, only the ghosts of a failed conquest. The crossing of the Berezina River in late November is perhaps the most infamous episode of the entire retreat. The Russians had destroyed the main bridge, trapping the remnants of Napoleon's army against the icy water in a remarkable feat of engineering and sheer desperation. Dutch engineers built the pontoon bridges under constant artillery fire in freezing conditions. For 2 days, the panicked mob tried to cross. The bridges were a scene of unimaginable chaos. Soldiers, civilians, women, and children were trampled underfoot or pushed into the freezing river. It was a bottleneck of death. While a core of the army managed to get across, tens of thousands were left behind, to be killed, captured, or to freeze to death on the eastern bank. Of the more than 600,000 men who entered Russia with the Grande Army, fewer than 100,000 staggered out. Many of those were sick, frostbitten, and would never fight again. It was a demographic catastrophe for France and its allies. An entire generation was decimated, not primarily by Russian bullets, but by General Winter and General Famine. The emotional devastation was absolute. These weren't just numbers. They were individuals. Sons, husbands, and fathers who had left home full of hope for glory and riches, now lay buried under Russian snow. The survivors were haunted by what they had seen and done. They brought back tales not of heroic charges, but of cannibalism, of abandoning friends, of a complete collapse of civilization. The psyche of a nation was wounded. Napoleon's retreat from Moscow is a brutal lesson in the importance of logistics. A military genius can win battles, but no army can march on an empty stomach. Napoleon underestimated the vastness of Russia, the resilience of its people, and the ferocity of its winter. He gambled that his legend was enough to force a quick victory, and he lost. The burning supply lines, the ruined villages, the desperate faces in the snow, they are a timeless monument to the fact that in war, the greatest enemy is often not the one you see, but the one you cannot fight. Nature, distance, and hunger. The broken wagon wheel in the mud became a more potent symbol of defeat than any captured flag. It shows us that history is not just made by grand strategies, but also broken by the simplest of failures. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into a dark chapter of history. It's a sobering reminder of the true costs of war, far beyond the battlefield. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to see covered. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one. The drums beat a thunderous rhythm, a symphony of triumph echoing through the grand avenues. Banners snap in the wind, a sea of vibrant color celebrating a great victory. The air is thick with cheers, with laughter, with the sheer, unadulterated joy of a people united in celebration. Crowds line the streets, their faces turned upward, eyes wide with awe as the procession passes. Polished armor gleams in the sunlight. Horses with braided manes prance proudly, and the heroes of the hour wave to the adoring mosque. It is a spectacle of power, a testament to strength and resilience. Every corner of the city seems to vibrate with this exultant energy. From our vantage point, it's a breathtaking panorama, a moment etched in history. But let's pull back a little. Let's move our gaze away from the center of the parade, away from the gilded chariots and the celebrated generals. Let's look toward the edges, to the sidelines, where the crowd thins. Here, the cheering is a little quieter, a little more subdued. What do we see? We see the faces that built this victory, not with swords, but with sweat and calloused hands. There's a farmer, his shoulders stooped from years of leaning over the earth. His face is a roadmap of wrinkles, each line telling a story of drought, of flood, of harvests that were bountiful, and harvests that were bare. He isn't cheering loudly. Instead, a slow, quiet smile spreads across his face, and his eyes, they glisten. It's not sadness, but a profound, overwhelming sense of relief. He looks at the parade, and he sees not just the soldiers, but the fields he tended, the grain he grew that fed the armies, the quiet, daily struggle that formed the backbone of this grand triumph. Beside him stands a woman, a weaver perhaps, or a potter. Her hands are rough, her knuckles swollen. They're hands that have worked tirelessly, spinning thread, shaping clay, creating the very fabric of daily life that the soldiers fought to protect. She clutches a small piece of cloth, her own handiwork, and watches the procession. A single tear traces a path through the dust on her cheek. It's a tear of pride, a tear of exhaustion, a tear for the sons and daughters who are now safe, for the promise of a peaceful dawn. Her smile is weary, but it is genuine, a flower blooming after a long, hard winter. And look over there, a blacksmith, his arms thick with muscle, his face smudged with soot that never quite washes away. He's leaning against a stone wall, his gaze distant. He remembers the clang of the hammer, the hiss of hot metal and water, the endless days and nights spent forging the tools and weapons that are now being paraded as symbols of glory. He doesn't see the shine of the polished steel. He sees the fire, the sweat, the ache in his back. He sees the mountain of iron he's shaped into a mountain of strength. His expression is one of quiet satisfaction, the deep, personal knowledge that his labor was not in vain. These are the silent partners in this victory. They are the roots of the great tree of triumph. Their story isn't told in the grand songs sung by bards or inscribed on the victory arches. Their epic is written in the soil, woven into cloth, hammered into steel. They are the foundation upon which this entire spectacle is built. While the city celebrates the peak of the mountain, they are the mountain itself, vast, solid, and enduring. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange, purple, and gold, the last of the procession disappears from view. The roar of the crowd fades into a gentle hum, the contented murmur of a city at peace. The grand monuments, now cast in long shadows, stand as silent witnesses. Our focus shifts to one such monument, a towering pillar celebrating the heroes of the day. But at its base, almost hidden in the deepening twilight, lies a different kind of tribute. A pair of old, worn-out boots. The leather is cracked and scuffed, the soles worn thin from countless miles walked over rugged fields and muddy paths. They are caked with the earth, the very soil that nourished a nation. These are not the boots of a soldier, but the boots of a farmer, a laborer, someone who walked the long, hard road of toil. They are a quiet testament to a different kind of march, the daily march from dawn till dusk. Leaning against the monument, right next to the boots, is a rusted shovel. Its wooden handle is smooth and dark from the grip of 1,000 workdays. The blade is blunted and stained, not with blood, but with the rich, dark soil of the land. It has dug foundations, cleared roads, and tilled the fields. It represents the building, the nurturing, the creation that underpins everything. This simple tool, resting against the grand stone, speaks a truth more profound than any inscription. It speaks of the hard, unglamorous work that makes moments of glory possible. The scene is utterly peaceful. The setting sun bathes everything in a warm, gentle light. The golden hour of reflection. There are no more cheers. Only the whisper of the evening breeze, the shovel and the boots. They aren't objects of defeat. They are symbols of a victory won not just on the battlefield, but in the fields, in the workshops, in the quiet, unwavering spirit of the people. They are the true, enduring monument to the strength of a nation. This is the bedrock of peace. The real masterpiece isn't the parade, but this quiet, powerful image of the tools that built the world worth fighting for. This is the story we often miss. The silent, powerful rhythm of ordinary life that makes the extraordinary possible. It's a reminder that every great achievement is supported by countless, unseen acts of labor and love. Thank you for watching, and for taking a moment to see the full picture with us. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more reflections on the world around us. See you next time.